Welcome to Winning Hand, the podcast about Marvel Champions, one card at a time. I am your host, Boom Guy, and I'm joined today by LazyTitan.
How's it going?
And special guest, the Brandt.
Hey, everybody. How are you doing?
Welcome, Brandt. We're happy to have you. But welcome, everybody, for joining us. If you click the episode, you already know what card we're talking about today. It is the aggression event Bring It, which I'm pretty excited about, and you'll see why later on in the episode. But to start with, let's introduce Brandt. So, Brandt, why don't you tell everybody who's listening about yourself and kind of your journey with the game? When did you start, that kind of stuff?
Sure. My name is Brandt. I'm a Libra. I'm left-handed, and I play bass, electric bass. So that's my main instrument that I enjoy playing. My journey for the game began the first weekend in November of 2019. So the store that I play at and work at, we have a 24-hour day in November for raising money for Extra Life, which goes to local children's hospitals. And so we were open 24 hours, and the game came out on Friday. And I think I played and or taught it 11 times over the 24 hours.
Wow.
Which was basically the day it came out. And I really haven't looked back since. So that was 2019. So we're coming up on 4 years straight of playing the game. And I literally have thousands of plays because so many of my plays are speed runs where I kill the villains in 1, 2, and 3 turns. So
yeah, you are kind of known for your speed runs, which is cool. I like that. It's like a different way to engage with the game. I'm not a speed run guy, but it's interesting to see people do it. Also, you do a lot of stuff on YouTube, and uniquely, you do playthroughs that aren't solo playthroughs. Like most stuff on YouTube is solo playthroughs. You really focus on multiplayer, which I think is really, really cool. How did you start doing that over YouTube?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, and stuck, then just like chatting through the Facebook groups online and maybe Discord or whatever, caught up really with Steve and Brian, and Steve had started like a Marvel Champions playtime that people can join, and we just started playing middle of the day at 11 o'clock at night because you don't have to get up for anything. So we were just playing, and then we figured out how we could record, and then we figured out how we could stream those games, and just had so much fun playing with them and played so many games with them. And we've added in other people. Eric is playing with us a lot now. But when I play solo, I basically like to play two-handed. I have nothing against solo. I just enjoy the interactions of the characters. That's my favorite part of the game. And if I'm going to stream with other people, I would much prefer to play 3 and 4 player. I enjoy the game that way. And I think, like you said, nobody's really doing it. So it's something to show off that other people aren't doing, because there are some phenomenal channels that have better camera and better video editing skills than I do. So I like to be live. I like it to be lively. I like us to play and show off the game at that point and interact with everybody. So I've really given us a focus towards the 3 and 4 player as much as I can.
Yeah, you've got a really authentic, kind of jovial, happy energy that I really enjoy when I watch your playthroughs. So please keep doing it. It's really great. So before I move on, let me ask you, what is your favorite player count?
Oh, all the way 4 player, 4 veteran players, 4 player is fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I'll play 3. They're kind of the same. I don't enjoy 4 players where nobody knows the cards. It's really hard. After 2 hours, you're banging your head against the wall. You've gotten nowhere. I mean, though, that's just not a way to play the game. But if you're hitting the 2 hour mark and you're about to get to that finish line, win or lose, I'm good with that. And preferably under 2 hours if I can, which is another thing I like to show off. Like, you can play the game with 3 and 4 people if people know what they're doing, and we show don't announce that you're going to draw a card with Captain Marvel. Just draw a card with Captain Marvel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that'll speed up the game. Those kind of things.
I think that's really you need experience for that, right? Because early in the game, someone might be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you drawing a card right now out of turn or whatever, or playing an event out of turn? You can just do stuff. But I often do the same thing. I frequently play 2 player, but even at 3 player, whether I announce it or not, I'll just do things at a turn, right? Like I'm tapping my Avengers Mansion. I'm just going to go ahead and grab this card now so I can think about my turn instead of waiting until it comes to me, just to kind of speed play up a little bit, which I think is really helpful.
Definitely speeds the game
I'll
up.
actually go. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, LazyTitan.
No, I just had a quick comment. You can go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll even go further. You said jovial. I will say that at 4 players, I've never played a game that's better cooperatively than this game. It is the highest level of cooperation I've ever seen in a game.
I agree, and I think the newer heroes, it's even trending that way even more as the game has gone on. The X-Men are a prime example of that, where they really, I love that about the X-Men. I'm not a huge, thematically, I don't care about the X-Men that much, but I love the fact that they're sharing X-Mansion, sharing the X-Jet, moving this around, Moira McTaggart, all that stuff. That's really, really cool, and I think that's really where the game shines. So I'm with you. All right, so we ask our guests when they come on the show a few questions first time. And one thing we already asked you was your favorite player count and how you got in the game. But let me ask you this. What is your favorite hero to play? I think I know what you're going to say, but...
Well, it is close, but I got to go with Rocket Raccoon. He's just awesome. Thematically, I love him. He's one of the best thwarters in the game. He's so fun. He's got tons and tons of powers and tricks. Even with people playing him and discovering, like, Murder You is a really good ability, but his best ability is the Tinker on the backside. So it's figuring out how can I flip down and get all that working. And I just love the thematics. It just reminds me of does anybody have any tape? You know, like when he's just tossing weapons left and right, trying to find new things, scrapping for him. His resource card, salvage, gets him things back. I just think it plays so into the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is also my favorite Marvel movie. So he definitely wins over on theme there, for sure.
Yeah. I know you're a Rocket fan. I was wondering if you were going to say he's your favorite to play, but I know you have a poster of Rocket. You're a big Rocket fan. So I respect it. I really, really like Rocket. I think he's underrated, and I think he continues to grow as the game comes out with more cards. Like, I find a way to go back to Rocket all the time.
Yeah.
Most recently, the Float Like a Butterfly, I've been kind of returning to Rocket, trying Float Like a Butterfly with him, which is also awesome. He's great in every aspect. That's a good choice. I love Rocket.
Yep.
LazyTitan, I know you love Rocket too.
Rocket's a favorite of mine. I haven't tried him in every aspect. I've seen him played in every aspect, but I like my red cards and I like to keep them where they are. So I have never heard someone say that tinkering is really his best ability. That's a new take for me.
Hands down.
I don't flip when I really that often unless I'm building a deck around it. I just stay in hero form and play dive bomb every turn, which is awesome. But I would be interested. How do you make it work? How do you get the techs? How do you get that many tech upgrades going? I guess you just use his.
Yeah, I just fuel them, So the key to me is I'll draw a weapon when I'm in hero form, a pistol. I'll play the pistol, deal 2 damage, flip down, scrap the pistol with 2 counters on it.
Interesting.
Because then when I play salvage, I'll put it back on top, and then really what you want to salvage are the battery packs. That's the one you really want to. But.
Yeah, that's what you want to salvage. Really, when I play Rocket, I just play out the cheap ones, the 1-cost ones, his pistols and his battery packs, and then don't ever let them go away. And then just the rest of them are just resource cards. That's how because I like to play the events. It's interesting to play the same hero 2 different ways.
Well, there you go.
To try that now.
Yeah, I think Rocket's... I've tried building around the Tinkerer ability, by using upgrades on allies even, and then trying to discard those kind of tech upgrades, which is fun. So do you normally put extra tech in? Sorry, we're getting off on Rocket, but I'm curious now. Do you put extra tech in, or are you mostly using his hero-specific tech?
Yeah, I think I mostly just use his. I'm trying to think if there's anything... if I'm playing something longer where I know I can build, I'll put a side holster so that I can get 3 weapons out. But they're all his that I want to have him play.
Sonic rifle, plasma grenade, those kind of things.
I don't think I do any of those. I'm trying to think if there's a tech. It would be in green, right? So it would be playing the energy barriers and that stuff. But generally in green, you want to repurpose those, not tinker them. So yeah, you're really tinkering his own stuff. He's got 2 battery packs, 2 pistols, and a rocket launcher, and whatever the one that has overkill.
Particle cannon.
So that's 6 in his kit, and you dig hard. You play Nick Fury, you play Ironheart, you tinker every turn. Turn one I'll mulligan, I'll draw more, I'll pop an item down, and I'll tinker it immediately to draw 2 cards. Just to look for more cards. Just dig. because damage isn't always what I'm going for in the beginning. Very control and build style.
Yeah, I did the float like a butterfly deck with him recently, and I used his battery packs on Sonic Rifle, so I added that just a way to maintain the confusion, which is interesting. That was the first time I'd used his battery packs on cards that weren't his. But I think, Rocket's great. He's got lots of different ways to build. He's great in every aspect. He's among my top 10 favorites for sure. What would you say, speaking of aspects, what's your favorite aspect, Brandt? I think I know what you're going to say again.
I really like playing support, so it's probably Justice. It's probably my favorite. It's just like, I will hold down the fort and you all do whatever else. But I thoroughly enjoy leadership where I'm not like the head honcho. So I'm not trying to do some kind, regroup or the constantly make the call, which I guess is also a good support way to play, is to getting Maria Hill back in a big game.
Yeah.
But I love my Captain Marvel free candy deck. That's my favorite one. And I'll just show, whenever I'm teaching people for the first time, I play Captain Marvel free candy. And it's just Captain Marvel handing all the upgrades out, playing Avengers Mansion, playing a helicarrier, giving people her card draw, and everybody at the table, you want 2 card draws and a free resource? I got this. Handing out Clarity of Purpose to everybody so they can use it to get resources. And I'm totally just playing support. I'm just giving you the cards you need and the allies to block you.
Yeah, I love playing support too. So, as someone who plays a lot of multiplayer, I'm glad to hear you're another support player out there.
Not my style, but I respect it. I appreciate you support players.
Much more exciting when you're playing 3 and 4 player too. That support role really, it's a lot more interesting than obviously solo or even 2 player to do it.
All right, last question. What's your favorite campaign box?
That is a good question. My favorite campaign box. I think it's Sinister Motives. I think it's probably my favorite one so far. I'm still partial to Rise of Red Skull because of the fact that my family could put on a movie and I can solo on expert mode during that movie. I thoroughly enjoy, all right, let me build a deck with Spider-Woman and take her through the entire thing on expert while we watch a 2-hour movie sitting at a table next to everybody. Because I'm not good at sitting on the couch watching TV. But I can stay awake doing that. So I really like Rise of Red Skull for that. But it is relatively easy. So, in terms of some challenge, I think Sinister Motives is pretty fun. Although Venom Goblin is just no fun at the end. It's too hard on expert.
Venom
You have to
Goblin's
drop him down to standard. So that's not super exciting. But I think overall I really like some of those fights in there. And some of the things the campaign does are really fun.
And the heroes are solid too.
I lied. It's Mojo Mania if I can do that.
Oh, that's cheat.
If I can do Mojo Mania, it is my number 1 campaign, hands down. Mojo Mania.
Okay. Why do you like Mojo Mania so much?
I love the simple, you just get an upgrade at the end of just take a card that you already had and start with it in play so you feel more powerful. I'm making a small decision based on my deck I already built. I love the random modulars, so every time I play, I'm playing something different. And just the simplicity of it, and I actually thoroughly enjoy that it's 3 instead of 5. 3 instead of 5 feels like I could play it in 1 and or 2 sessions.
Okay, those are all solid arguments. I'll allow it. Mojo Mania.
And also my opinions.
Yeah, it's your opinion.
We'll allow that.
Okay, so that was a brief introduction for our guest, the Brandt. Now we're going to move into what we've been playing recently. LazyTitan, why don't you kick us off? What have you been playing recently?
So recently, I may have mentioned this before. I've been playing a favorite of mine, and that is Drax. Protection is my go-to. I play just sort of it's almost the same deck every time, but I basically freestyle it from memory every time I build it, so it changes just a little bit. And after having played it, I realized that I forgot Leading Blow. And I played a whole campaign without Leading Blow, which is a very good Drax card. But basically the idea is you just ready yourself as many times as you possibly can. And because of Dweethite Mastery, you get to draw all the cards every time, and then you swing for the win. It's, I think, my favorite way to play. I like the very aggression. Traditionally, I like event-heavy stuff, but I like aggression stuff, dealing damage. But there's something about just turning sideways, dealing 6 damage, readying yourself, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, and then the villain dies. And it really brings me a joy that no other deck does, and I will play it forever. And I'm hoping that X23 gives me that same kick. But I'm interested to see where that new hero goes.
I think you're gonna like X23.
I hope so. I thought I was gonna like Wolverine too. Wolverine lets you spend health to play cards, and that's like I like doing that. And also, I thought he was going to ready a lot, but he didn't really hit the mark for me. Didn't hit the Drax heights.
He's not Drax, that's for sure.
He's not.
I've seen you play that Drax deck, and it is incredible.
It's very good. When we were at the con last year, me, you, and I believe Kennedy Hawk.
Yep.
We played Sabretooth, and really just me. I killed him before Robert Kennedy, Kennedy, or not Kennedy.
The senator.
Senator Kelly, that's his name, not Kennedy.
Kelly, yes.
Senator. Different senator. Before he even took enough damage to die, I had killed Sabretooth by myself, and it was incredible. It was awesome.
Yeah, and like the first 2 turns, and that was I think Kennedy Hawk was playing Hawkeye.
He was, and I think you were playing War Machine, maybe.
I think I was playing War Machine, and he had a rough setup. I think I didn't have a great setup either, but
I had a really good start.
Basically done before anything happened. That deck's incredible. So
it's so fun.
So super fun to do with Drax. We did this in a game. Might have been even more players. Somebody played Nebula. They played the CITT, and they paid to ready Drax.
That's a real support player. That's
right. So that's what you're doing, right? Is in those multiplayer, you're saying, look, I'll give up my resources to ready you because you're going to punch really hard. And so now you got an extra punch in every turn.
I mean, I love my extra punches. That's what I live for.
Yeah.
And I think, speaking of the Guardians, isn't nowhere if someone plays a Guardian ally, anyone can draw a card? It's not the person who played it, right?
That player can draw a card.
Is it just that player?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Oh, okay. But you don't have to be the one who has it in front of you. Anyway, I'll go next. I'll let Brandt go last since he's a guest. I've been playing Ghost Spider, speaking of Sinister Motives. Ghost Spider has long been, I think, my favorite web warrior, and maybe that's a hot take. I don't know. But I've always felt, for me, like she's one of those heroes that just feels at home in an aspect. And I think I talked about this in a previous episode. There's a few of those for me that just feel like they have a quote-unquote natural aspect that they kind of, where I feel, my personal opinion, where they belong and they fit the best and just synergizes with their kit. And as a protection player myself, I've always felt like Gwen is a protection hero. She just works in protection. Her hero ability synergizes really well with protection. It's really good. But I've been pushing myself to try that in a different way recently. And I've tried her in aggression, which I think works just fine. And then I played her in Justice recently. And it worked surprisingly well. I think Ghost Spider is maybe more versatile than I initially thought. Maybe that's the card pool that's expanding to help her. But I think she is unique as a web warrior because she is the one of them, in my opinion, that relies on web warrior allies the least. Many of them rely on recurring or using those web warrior allies, which are incredibly powerful. And the Web of Life in Destiny is incredibly powerful. But she just wants to use events. And so there's a few in there that I use, especially Auto, to kind of ready her web bracelets. But it was mostly built around using events and triggering and readying herself, which is really fun. I think Gwen has kind of maybe got some new life breathed into her with my last couple games. I still don't know how she would work in leadership. I don't know if there's enough. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone listening is going to email me.
I got you.
All right.
It's teamwork and last stand. Those are the 2 response cards in leadership.
Okay.
So she attacks and exhausts another ally, adds their or thwarts, and then she gets to ready.
Yeah, I think teamwork's the way to go there.
Teamwork is a solid one. I did not realize that was a response.
Yep.
And what was the other one? We said last stand. Okay, last stand.
+3 damage. When an ally attacks, they do +3 damage, and then they're discarded.
And they discard, right?
And then she readies.
Okay. That could work too. And you could put in someone like the champion ally Spider-Man, who's not a web warrior, but he gets the +2 when he comes in. You could boost it with last stand. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to try in leadership. But yeah, Ghost Spider I think is really fun. And she is my favorite web warrior, I think, easily at this point. There's a number of them I don't particularly enjoy playing. They're very powerful. But that's what I've been playing recently. It's Ghost Spider in a couple different builds. So
Out of protection, she's the hero that made Warning great again. Because
yes,
Warning is an
Yeah.
awesome card with her. She doesn't need it in protection. There's so many responses. And I don't think you're wrong in saying that she's kind of built around protection with a 3 defense stat line and ability to play all those response cards that really are in protection. It does make sense, but she's super fun outside of it and lets you play Warning. And again, in a multiplayer game, you can play Warning on any player,
yeah,
and then you get to ready. So you can block
Yeah.
for somebody and then play Warning on somebody and ready and then block again for somebody. So it's really fun. Anyway.
yeah. No, that's good. All right. Well, Brandt, what have you been playing recently? Tell us.
Yeah, I've been playing Angel, the hotness. Look at me.
Ooh, Angel. All right.
So I've been trying to play Angel, and I tried to search around and find something. Angel came in protection, so I like to get out of that. So I've been really trying to focus into leadership, and there's 2 awesome aerial events in leadership. They gave us one in the back of the pack, Flying Formation. It is a 4-cost card. It's an alliance card.
Mm-hmm.
So getting other people to help pay for that, which again, on this card, it's a little weird. Obviously, the idea is supposed to be multiple players have aerial characters in play because it readies 3 aerial characters. But you've got some pretty big stat lines on Angel that you can get, so readying him can be good as well as some of the other allies. And then Air Supremacy, which is a 2-cost aerial tactic. You choose up to X enemies, where X is equal to the number of aerial characters you control, and deal 3 damage to each of them. So at a minimum with Angel, this is a 2 for 3 damage, and then you draw a card in Angel form. Or it's a 2 for 3 damage, and then you deal 2 damage in Archangel form. So it's 2 for 5, or it's essentially 1 for 3 every time. So it's really good card, even if you don't have a pile of them. And then I play aerial allies. So the big Captain Marvel, Cannonball, Cloud9, Sunspot, Falcon, and Adam Warlock. So these all have like a variety of abilities that you can react to. Falcon can come in and out of the game to remove threat. Warlock can discard an extra card that maybe you don't want to get an effect. Sunspot can come in and deal a whole bunch of damage. Same with Captain Marvel. She can get a stun out for you. And then she's got big stats. Cannonball can be free because for every aerial card in your hand, you take no consequential damage. And then Cloud9's there to help you with threat. So you've got a nice spread of characters, and you're trying to build that up. It is a pretty slow build, and then when you get there, it's just like ba-boom, because when you play the aerial formation in Archangel form, you deal 4 additional damage.
Yeah.
So it's a little slow build. When I played it in solo, it can struggle a little bit. When you pair it up with somebody, it's just awesome. It just gets there. Having them cover for a few of the deficiencies. He can mostly hold down threat himself, and take damage, dealing actual damage to minions and stuff like that. He struggles with a little bit as he gets set up, but really fun cards to try out. And then again, if you get it into multiplayer, Alliance is such an underplayed thing because people are like, I don't want to pay for your cards.
Yeah.
But you can really do some powerful things if you're willing to, kind of play that support. Let me help you do well,
Yeah. Air Supremacy is a card I want to ask you about because I was into aerial before it was cool. I'll just go on the record and say my favorite hero is Vision, which the listeners of the show will probably know by now. And I tried to build an Air Supremacy Vision deck a while ago. It was maybe even as early as the last Con of Heroes, because Air Supremacy is not an attack. So it's a way to deal damage in intangible form. It just deals damage. So I thought he gets aerial. I put Air Supremacy, and I try to build the deck around aerial allies. And I'm always looking for ways with Vision that you can attack or thwart without actually keyword attack or thwart, right? It's another way to use his intangible form. And I mean, that deck was a total bust. Let's just go ahead and say what it was. It's built around one event card. It was very difficult to make it work. It was a combo that I was searching for, and it never quite worked. I will probably revisit some form of that deck now that there's more aerial support. Not that Vision is the best person to play aerial with. I think it's probably Angel.
Yeah, almost
but
certainly.
I just can't quit Vision. So I'll go back to it. But Air Supremacy was a card that I tried to make work and just never could. But
Call for Backup helps a lot too. To get those allies you're looking for.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel and Falcon and some of those, yeah.
One thing I will say about Vision is A thing I hear you say often, and since you are, I think, the only person I've ever talked to who consistently plays Vision, I'll
Yeah.
use my example.
I
The
agree.
only, like, you often talk about trying to find a way to attack without saying attack,
Mhm.
but was that deck meant to not flip your form? Because that's the only time it ever matters.
Right.
It
I
doesn't
think
matter if you are flipping every turn like Vision's
Right.
supposed to.
if you flip to dense, it doesn't matter. You can just attack. But I'm just trying to find cool ways of using cards
I know
in like unique ways.
You're just doing stuff because you like
Yeah.
to switch it up. You like to keep it fresh. And
I do
I get
weird
that.
decks.
Yes,
But
like play
also,
Vision.
like, that's what makes Vision unique, right? So I'm trying to lean into ways that make
Yeah.
heroes the unique,
Sure.
beings that they are. And so trying to find little things like that, like, oh, this deals damage, but it's not actually technically an attack, so I could still do this out of phase. And so
like
yeah.
Bombs Away.
Bombs Away is that
Hero action, not an attack.
not an attack.
So
okay,
if you want to play Vision, you could also
Here we
just play
come.
Dive Bomb in Vision. You can also attack, but you can
Yes.
play Bombs Away instead.
We're going to talk about Vision later in this episode. I am just sure of it.
We've already
Okay.
done it.
So we have a question from our audience. The question this week is, appropriately enough, adjacent to the card we're talking about. It is related to aggression, and the question is, what is your favorite hero to play in aggression? Pretty simple. And Brandt, I'm going to let you go first because you're the guest. What is your favorite hero to play in aggression?
I'm going to go ahead and hold off on the deck and the card that we're talking about, and I'll go a different way.
Okay.
Favorite is tricky for me in this game because I love the variety. So, like, I like figuring out how to play all 50 heroes. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I get the point of the question. I'm not going to dance around and give you 10. I played Miss Marvel Aggression through the entire, which might have been your last episode, I think. I don't know if there was
Yeah.
one recorded in between. She was the card of that one. And I just played her through the entire Next Evolution campaign, 4-player expert. And it is ridiculous what she can do in aggression. It's a 50-card aggression deck in 4-player expert. I don't do much in the beginning, so people got to cover for me. But, turn 3, 4, whatever, she turns the corner. And now, with Cable and all these side schemes and getting all your upgrades in play with somebody like Miss Marvel, who's just got a pile of supports and upgrades she wants to get out to get set up. It's ridiculous what she can do with Into the Fray and No Quarter. Those two cards in aggression.
No Quarter is a ridiculous card.
Are you using Hone Technique in that deck too?
Oh yeah. So it's Hone Technique,
Good
3
man.
follow-throughs, marked, and then you play Into the Fray or No Quarter. So you get an enemy marked, which means all damage is overkill. When all excess damage is overkill. You get them down to 1 health, and then you hit them with Into the Fray, which deals 6 damage, which is 9 with Hone Technique, which is 12 with 3 follow-throughs, which is 14 with Embiggen, and now you remove 13 threat from the main scheme and deal 13 damage with a 3-cost card.
Wow.
And if not, you play No Quarter, and then it's 4, 6, 9, 10, 11, and you deal 10 overkill damage and discard 10 cards, 3 of which could be Digging Deep or White Fox, and you put all the other aggression cards in your hand.
I forgot about those cards.
Man.
I haven't played No Quarter since.
It's fun if you like to then be like, I now have a 14-card hand and I don't know what to do with my turn.
Who doesn't like that?
I like to live that. That's my
the
life.
other 3 players.
That's true. They groan
That's
when you draw them.
But, I mean, in terms of just having that hero that could then just, I had a melee in my hand. So if we get a bunch of... Because just in 4-player, you're just constantly having 1 or 2 minions on the table, And so you're constantly able to remove them. Melee can spread, 8 damage to 2 of them with her, just in a quick pinch without getting fancy and setting all that stuff up. She's just unbelievable if you like combo and you like setup. She's pretty unmatched in aggression. It's pretty awesome. And multiplayer, you could definitely play that deck in solo, but you'd have to tweak for some things. You'd have to worry about covering for yourself and this, that, and the other thing. And you're only removing threat from the main schemes. So you got to make sure you have something to remove some side schemes, but it still works,
Yeah, Miss Marvel's great. No arguments here. We talked about it in our previous episode, so I won't go into it, but that's a great shout. LazyTitan?
I think for a while I would have said Rocket. For up until very recently, I would have said Rocket because just the things you can do with Murdered You and all the great stuff. It's really a powerhouse. But I think it has to be Angel. I played Angel through the Mad Titan Shadow, and I built a deck that was zero thinking, play dive bomb every turn, and it was some of the most fun Marvel Champions I've ever played in my entire life. It's truly just use Worthington Industries to shuffle dive bomb back into your deck every single turn, and just keep doing it. And if you sometimes you get lucky and you draw Avian Anatomy, and if you have the wings and Avian Anatomy and dive bomb, you can just play it twice, and you just do it. And that's the whole deck. There's no nuance, there's no thinking, there's no combo. There's a little bit of setup, which you have to get Worthington Industries and the wings, but because side schemes are a thing, those are a joke, and then you just win the game. It's incredible. I would recommend anyone try it, but that I think I have to say that's my favorite.
That's a good call.
Strong.
I think I'm gonna go a little old school here. I'm gonna say Hawkeye.
Okay.
I actually quite like Hawkeye. I think he is kind of much maligned. I know Kennedy Hawk famously has a love affair with Hawkeye, and that's a different topic for a different episode. But I think generally he's kind of forgotten by a lot of people. He doesn't get a lot of love. And I have a soft spot for characters who don't get a lot of love. Shout out to Vision. But
shout out the boy.
Yeah. But I just
Shout
think
out to
Hawkeye is
Spectrum.
really enjoyable. Spectrum's another one. I think Hawkeye is kind of, if you lean into his glass cannon, I think obviously it's a multiplayer deck. You need someone else to help you maybe defend, at least thwart. He's got a little bit in there, but when you can just focus on damage, he can actually output quite a bit of damage. And I think it's fun to make heroes like Hawkeye work, who, you know, are mid-tier heroes, but I think it's fun. And he's a cool hero, and I like that like glass cannon aspect of him. So I'll say Hawkeye.
I like it.
Yeah,
Respectable.
thanks to whoever sent that in. I don't remember. I don't ever write that down, but I appreciate your email, winninghandpodcast@gmail.com. All right, so now we go on to the card of the day. Brandt, you brought a card along with you today.
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind reading the card to our audience before we start talking about it?
Sure. The card I have with me today to discuss is called Bring It! And this is a zero-cost aggression event. It is max 1 per phase, which is, I have learned, across all players.
Yeah.
So that does change a little bit. And then it's a hero action, which says, draw 1 card for each minion engaged with you. And the flavor text says, you picked the wrong day, pal. And it's Rocket Raccoon, of course.
It is a lightning resource, if that matters.
Ah, yes.
So before we get in, usually the first thing we talk about is art. So before we go any further, I will say this is art from a comic panel. It is from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, number 22 from 2014. Okay, so the art on Bring It is amazing. I love the art on this. It's phenomenal. I love that it's Rocket.
Really?
There's like shooting a gun. There's like, you can see the motion blur. There's like lines in it. There's bullets flying. He's shooting apart something. I don't know if it's a tree or a symbiote or what.
I think it's a
blasting
symbiote.
it. I love the art on this card. So I just jumped right in. What do you guys think?
I am not so hot on it. I like it. My main problem with it is that there's no background. It's just sort of red, angry, like lines. Like it's just kind of he's going crazy and he's about to blow everything up, which I like. But I just kind of wish there was more of a background to it. But I always love Rocket holding an oversized gun, just blasting off into the abyss. Because
He doesn't hold undersized guns. Okay, he holds
no,
oversized
never.
guns. That's his
Rocket
thing.
never holds a gun that's right for his hand.
No. Brandt, what do you think about the art?
No, I agree. I love the art. I would say in terms of like a collector's piece, it doesn't like pop off of the panel. You know what I mean? But
wouldn't hang
again,
it
it's
on
a
my
comic. Yeah, it's a comic book panel, but it's perfect for the card, the flavor of the card. I mean, Rocket is between, you know, I feel like the game has made us associate Thor with minions, but blowing up minions is definitely like a Rocket thing.
For
Yeah.
You know, if I think about that, you know, in terms of him, Thor feels more like a protector to me, you know? where the game plays on that a little bit. So I think it perfectly fits the card for sure, the panel they found. And then to have a quote to go with it at the bottom, flavor text,
Yes.
and a quote, like it all just matches up to an excellent card on that, that part.
I mean, so we'll just talk about, usually we go in order, we'll go out of order here and talk about the theme next. You just touched on it, Brandt. The theme on this card is just pure rocket, from the picture to the name to the flavor text. Like it's, and also just like what you're doing with it. It's rocket through and through. And as the rocket
All the
lover,
way.
like, tell us, right?
It's totally that theme. I mean, the bring it, give me the minions, I got this. It's kind of telling you as the aggression player, like, lean into this arc, right? This archetype or whatever. I'm there. So yeah, it's just yeah. It's hard to say. It's like it's perfect with the quote at the top, the picture, and then the flavor text at the bottom. It just wraps it all together really nicely.
Because
even the
it's
lightning
inherently-
energy is almost better than the physical.
Yeah, Rocket's not a physical fellow. He's a smart man.
Because it's inherently risky, right? It's asking you to pile up minions in front of you. Let them sit there. They're going to be activating on you, and let them sit there, sort of pay off with this card and draw. There's no limit to this card, right? You can only play it once per phase, but you can draw as many cards as there are minions in front of you, which could be, I don't know, I guess theoretically there's no limit, right? It could be 10 or 20. I don't know if anyone could get that far, but you theoretically could. And I just love that. Like, you're going to let them sit in front of you and draw a big card. And draw a ton of cards with this card. So that's really cool. The theme is great. Go.
One thing I'll say about theme is I have a little bit of trivia for you guys. What pack do you guys think this card's from?
I know what pack this is from.
You know what pack this is from?
I do.
Because it's not what you would think.
Of a podcast. It's from Drax. I know
it's from Drax.
Yeah.
Which Drax came as aggression, which
he did.
I have played Drax in aggression.
He came as protection, I think.
Or he might have. He came with aggression
this
cards,
came as
though.
an extra in his pack.
And he seems like he would be aggression, but Drax is a protection hero through and through.
No, because he came with leading blow and night. No, he came with a bunch of
and all that.
His precon was protection.
So this comes from Drax, which it sort of feels like a Drax card, but I think we all know this is a Rocket card. This was made for Rocket, and it's good in Rocket. Spoilers.
Well,
I think
you
it got
say this
tucked
is
in
made
there
for
with
Rocket, but Brandt has famously made a deck not for Rocket with this card.
And I actually have something to talk about after that. So go on, because I built a deck inspired by yours recently that I tried out.
So Brandt, why don't you tell us about your deck that you made?
Sure. So yeah, I would say this is the most. I hate using the term broken because that makes it sound like the card shouldn't exist. Although I have argued that before. But this is the most powerful card in the game, in my mind. Like, it can be the most powerful card in the game. So you actually asked the maximum on this card, which there is no max. But I have drawn 17 cards from this one card.
Wow.
I think my maximum's like 6.
What amazing hero could you possibly do that with, Brandt?
So the hero that you can do it with
Seems
is
pretty
Vision.
Lame. Oh, that is lame.
So if you put Vision in, and I have this deck, I think it's Vision, the Intangible Minion Collector.
I think that's
I'll put it in the show notes below.
Yeah, that is the deck that I kind of initially built off of this or went with. And I'll give credit to Steve Kimmel too from Play the Game. We were definitely talking about this as this hero was coming out. I kind of put the deck together and played it and everything, but he definitely helped me come up with the ideas and everything, which is based off of his Party Thor deck. If people have played Party Thor before, who does the same thing, you get Thor to gather minions and use this card to fuel all that, and Thor does it well with high health and
Steve and I played Party Thor at the first con.
I witnessed Party Thor in person. It didn't do super well, but I can see the theory.
So this is the idea. So what makes it work so well with Vision is that you stay intangible. So that's why it's Vision, the Intangible Minion Collector. So in intangible form, Vision takes 2 fewer damage from each attack.
Yep.
So you get a whole bunch of minions in front of you that deal 1 and or 2 damage, or maybe they deal 3 and you take 1. You're still doing okay, presumably. And you just keep the minions there in front of you, and you just keep tanking them and keep tanking them and keep tanking them. And as your Bring It's come around, you're drawing more and more and more cards to get those build cards on the table to be able to do that. Now there's been even more cards that you can put in this. And Vision himself can control the threat with the deck. So I have some of it laid out in front of me. So you're going to want 3 reboots in there because that lets you ready and heal Vision. So if you are taking a little bit of damage, or you're obviously still letting the villain attack you. So, if the villain's hitting for 2 plus a flip, you're taking a little bit more every turn. Then you basically want to go get minions. So you want things like Angela in your deck, as well as looking for trouble can be good, depending on how much you're trying to control the threat. If you can get to minions, because there's a lot of them, and you can control the threat, you don't really need looking for trouble, or you can throw one in to start fueling minions. And then just card draw works well, like Ironheart and Nick Fury. Really where you're going to deal your damage is with your minions. So Hercules becomes amazing. And one thing I love about this deck is who plays Hercules? Nobody plays Hercules.
Nobody ever.
And this deck plays Hercules, so I love it because Hercules costs 6, but he's 1 fewer for every minion in front of you. So as soon as you get minions, eventually he becomes free.
Yeah.
With all these allies dealing damage, you're going to want a boot camp in there. So that's like your main card to fuel things. You get boot camp out, and now all your allies are dealing +1. You don't kill minions unless maybe if they have guard and you want to be able to get through that, or if they have like patrol or some other effect that's keeping you from maintaining control, then you will defeat them with your allies.
Or villainous, maybe.
Yeah, then from there, it's up to you. I really, like, the deck I have up there is not the deck I play every time. I build a deck every time, and I would tech. So some of those tech pieces, like Throg is just going to help you to block, or Hulk if you're looking for blockers that are cheap. Deadpool's a great new card. He could just come out and infinitely thwart for 2 with you, or deal 2 damage and just stay on the table. He's going to add acceleration, so there'll be a timer on that. The big issue with this deck is going to be, at some point, you're going to draw your obligation. And that is what can potentially shut the deck down. So Vision's obligation, corrupted programming, says treat your mass form upgrades text box as if it were blank. So you're no longer blocking all that damage. And you have to flip down. Now, when you flip down, all those minions are going to scheme.
Yeah.
And it could get out of control. So you need an oh shoot button. Okay? And so the best oh shoot button is probably Thor, the ally, where he deals 3 damage. If you pay a lightning, which we have because we have Bring It in the deck, you can deal 3 damage to every minion in front of one person. So you can get rid of all those minions and flip down. The other way to do it is Spider Girl. So Spider Girl will confuse a minion, so you can take that villainous minion or maybe somebody with 2 thwart, and you can confuse them, and then when you have to flip down, they don't scheme. So you have ways to kind of control that stuff. And that's kind of the idea behind the deck. Now, in addition, what I don't have up on there is build support and superpower training just help you get those pieces out. Build support helps you to get boot camp out, and superpower training can get the solar gem, the cape. There's a bunch of different upgrades actually that he has, but those are the 2 big ones that you can get out with those. And really, you're just trying to get all your pieces on the table so they're not in your deck. So then when you're drawing, you're getting all those. Other than that, you're going to need health, so you need things like Honorary Avenger and Endurance. You can get around attacking if you need some ping damage with Plasma Pistols, because they can deal damage. You can throw an Energy Spear on one of your Guardian allies to deal with Tufts, and then Def Focus actually helps you play your Thwart cards, because you can't play your attack cards, but you now can play your Thwart cards cheaper. Between that and your Solar Gem, you have ways to deal with things. And I can go wider from there, but I think that gives people, an overview.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would mention is if you're really dealing with a villain that's going to hit you hard, Ronin and Thanos and stuff like that, then putting more cheap allies in to chump block for you is the way to get through that. Because somebody might say, well, what do you do if Ronin hits you twice for 7? Yeah, you die.
Yeah,
so you're going to need some allies to deal with those things. So then you're sacrificing. Yeah, well, Throg's perfect for toughness. Yeah. And that's where I tech, right? Like, Throg is probably an almost always good because he just comes in with tough and takes a hit for you. And you can put the spear on him. So if you're going to have to deal with tough somewhere, he can do that. you have those ideas. But yeah, you just got to look at what you're dealing with, and like if you're going to really get overwhelmed with minions, then you can have like Dust is another character that can get rid of everything in front of you. So there's lots of answers. So that's why I was shocked with the deck was, I played it against some kind of like standard things like Claw and whatever, and people were like, oh, that's cool, that's fun. But then it's like, what do you do against these bigger ones? I was like, actually, if you just throw a pile of 2-cost allies in, then you just chump block them all, and you just go from there. Yeah. And then eventually, when you thin the deck, you can flip and just 1-turn kill.
Wow.
I mean, when you draw your entire deck, that's how it works. It's how it should be.
Yeah.
If you draw your entire deck and you cannot kill the villain, you built your deck wrong. So, good job.
And I believe drawing your deck is now no longer a loss condition.
I had heard someone mention that as a lose condition, but only because of this deck, which means that this deck was making new rules, which is, I mean, good job. You're spearheading aggression for the next generation.
Yeah. Well, that's an awesome deck, Brandt.
It's so cool.
I think that leads nicely into the next part of the card that we should talk about, which is the power of this card. And I think what you just laid out is that this card is incredible. Drawing up to 17 is crazy. I mean, even drawing 3 cards, quite frankly, is amazing.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, this card can't be bad unless you have 0 minions, because even if you have 1 minion, you just cycle. Which is not great, but it's not the end of the world.
So
yeah, I will say, so there's one other fun part, which is Shadow of the Past is your friend in this deck.
Yeah, because you get your Ultron.
Shadow of the Past brings Ultron out, who then brings out a minion, a 1 damage minion every turn.
Which,
however, it is from your deck, so you will eventually run into a problem.
Yeah, it can bring it, or your damage cards. Yeah, that can cause problems, but it is just free money while it's there.
But for the most part, and you do have to be tracking corrupted programming and have a plan for when if honestly, if it comes out early, it's not a big deal. Like you can just flip down, kill something with a minion, kill a minion or 2, let 1 thwart, it doesn't matter. But if it comes out in that like 4, 5, 6 turn, that's where it really causes some trouble. But the card itself is also super powerful. And we can talk about some other decks that can play it as well, but I'll let you guys comment. I talked for a while there.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why you're here. I think that deck is really fun. I've played it. I think LazyTitan, you've played it too, right?
I don't know if I've played that deck, but I've played variants on it. I don't know if I've ever debased myself to play Vision, but I have played Heroes. I built a similar version of it with Wolverine, which is the thing I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so tell us about that.
Basically, the idea was steal Brandt's deck and do it, but not as good. So the plan of the Wolverine deck was, what if you took all the benefits of Vision, which is not taking damage and being able to stay intangible, and you just ignored all of that and took damage anyway? And so then I played Berserker Frenzy to do that. So you would just take damage, and then you have ways to heal through it. I put Symbiote Suit in there just for the extra hit points because it can get dicey. But then you were double drawing off both getting hit, and then you could bring it and keep going. It worked pretty well, but with Brandt's deck, you're probably not going to die. With my Wolverine deck, you can sometimes just die, and it's fun, but it's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, the thing I like about that Wolverine deck in comparison to the Vision deck we just talked about, right? Wolverine is actively spending his health as a resource and as a new way to play cards and pay for things. Vision is just like reducing the incoming damage it's not really paying his health as a resource, but he's using that intangible form in this deck. I think anytime you can think of really novel ways to play cards and creative ways to do stuff, that's what makes this game really, really fun, right? It's just a way that you create weird combinations, and sometimes they don't work, like my Air Supremacy deck that I talked about earlier. It just was a clunker. It didn't really work. Okay. But the fact that, 4 years in, we have all these new ways people are still figuring out to do things is really, really cool.
Yeah,
and
that's good stuff.
I think that's really interesting. I like just looking at Marvel CDB sometimes and seeing some of the decks people come up with. They're very creative. So I think that's a really fun thing.
Yeah, so Wolverine's another hero who can do this well, as you were saying, LazyTitan, because he heals 2 every turn. And then that Berserker Frenzy lets him draw even. So he's just drawing cards, right? And then
you play
Storm is
Bring
another
It.
one. Yeah, exactly.
Ah,
Storm
yeah,
is another
Storm.
one because you can play. I can't remember the cards, but she has a
Blizzard.
card. Right. You can go to Blizzard to reduce their damage, and then you can
Snap
play
Freeze.
a card. Yeah.
That
and
reduces all attacks
all
by 3.
damage incoming is reduced.
Yeah.
So she can reduce the damage kind of a little more temporarily than Vision. However, she can still attack and do things throughout, so there might be advantage to her there.
It's
But
dicey
honestly,
with Storm.
yeah, no, it works really well. And again, you're thinking about endurances, you're thinking about honorary X-Men's to get your health up and things like that. But honestly, any hero can use Bring It and this. And you already mentioned one of the cards, which is the Symbiote Suit, which I've discovered people hate this card in solo. They despise it. Why would I ever want 10 health? Well, I want 10 health so that I can tank 5 minions so I can draw 5 cards off of Bring It. And then the other big card is Moment of Triumph. So Moment of Triumph is when you deal damage, all the excess damage heals you up. So that's the big card you want to play. Now you're pulling minions. You're overkilling them with whatever, not backflip. What is swinging web kick, right? And so you want to hit them and then heal off of that with Spider-Man. So Symbiote Suit, endurance, and an honorary whatever gives you plus 14 health. So suddenly you're in the big leagues, and you can take all that damage, fuel up with Moment of Triumph, and then use Bring It to get there. That's really the idea. Bring It almost brings an archetype of tanking, which is something we don't really think about because we think about minions as threats on the table that need to be removed instead of a resource that we can use to generate things, right? It's kind of backwards. But probably what is the most fun with Bring It outside of kind of doing this tanking thing is Thor. Because if you combine Bring It with Get Over Here in a multiplayer game and you pull the minions to you to draw 2 cards, and then you play Bring It to draw another card off of them and whatever you have, and you still kill them. Like, you don't go for this whole, tank them for a while. Maybe you tank them for a couple turns, and but you're pulling one over to you, being able to cycle 2 or 3 cards with Bring It, and then move on. And, of course, Thor loves having lightnings in his deck, which Bring It is. So, works well there.
Like we talked about, even if Bring It only draws you 2 cards, it's good. Even if it draws you 1 card, it's just cycling a card, right? It's still good.
37 card deck.
So drawing 2 cards is great. Drawing 3 cards with Bring It is amazing. Drawing 17, that's just dumb. I don't
Drawing
even know what to say.
17 is so many that you have to be building around that. Whereas you can reasonably draw 5 cards with this, with very little setup. If you're playing
2 or 3 is
looking
super
for trouble,
simple.
Right.
Yeah, it's not hard.
Thor, you can draw 2 cards with this pretty much almost every time, and that's great, right? It's just you getting through your deck faster. So,
and there's
this
always
is a really good card.
What if you're fighting a minionless villain? Well, then why are you even considering Bring It?
What if? Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to play this into a minion villain. I guess who even has no minions?
There's a few. I think Absorbing Man is the
Absorbing Man's one of them.
Is one of them.
I played Thor into Absorbing Man
not many.
2 weeks ago. It worked fine. You just hit the villain.
Thor's good.
Thor's good, but if you have
just
no
a minion
minions,
slayer.
Yeah, but the thing with unless you're really, really going into it, if there's no minions, just hit the villain. That's how you win the game.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about, we've kind of touched on the fun, which is our last category. We talked about power, art, theme, fun. I think this card's super fun. We all agree. This is an awesome card. It feels great to play it.
Love it.
You feel, when you have it in your hand, you have a bunch of minions, you think, yes, and you slap it down and you draw a bunch of cards. That's fun, personified or cardified or whatever. But that is awesome. And so, unless you guys disagree, it's a super fun card,
I think
right?
this is a super fun card.
Yeah, the place that someone else would disagree, I don't, would just be if I'm building a deck and putting it away and I don't know what I'm fighting, do I want Bring It in there? Definitely. Am I going to be able to use, right? And that's going to kind of be, so it's a little bit more of a tech card than a staple. That's,
okay.
Yeah.
That's the one argument I would make is that it's not like, oh, I'm playing aggression. I need 3 Bring It's. I don't know what else I need, but I need 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
so
I will
it
often
does
only
have
run
that
2.
element.
But there's almost edge cases, right? I feel like we talked about, you're almost always going to draw a card with it. And for some heroes like Captain Marvel and Thor, the lightning resource alone is sure, I can always spend it for that. I think I agree with you. It's not a staple. It's not the first card out of my box when I build an aggression deck. But there's so many decks where this makes an appearance, and it's 0 cost, which always feels great, right? You're not spending another card to play it, so that feels good. You're often drawing cards. Drawing cards feels good. I would say it feels worst when you have multiple copies in your hand because you might have multiple minions out there and you draw 2 in your hand and you think, well, that sucks because I would like this next turn.
The thing is that you can then draw so many cards that you're going to need some resources. So that's what Bring It's for.
That's true.
And you also can't play double aggression, two-handed, or you and a friend, and both play Bring It decks. I discovered that the max 1 per phase, which makes sense, but it's not per player, it's per everything. And so I did do a game where we were both playing tank.
And you step on each other's toes a little bit.
Vision and Party Thor, and you can't actually both generate from the card, and you're fighting over the minions. But it is kind of funny that you get almost like a Legolas Gimli kind of. That one's mine.
Who gets to play it this turn?
Who gets to play it?
I have 4. You only have 3.
Any card that says you can't play this more than once in a phase is already like probably going to be powerful. And I feel like this card is no exception. Like you're like, okay, I see why this card needs to be limited.
Oh, I'm very glad that
I'm in
on the
favor
card.
of almost always in Marvel Champions. There's more limits.
Yeah, I'm shocked the card isn't something even like limit 10, which people would look at that and go, oh, now that's
how are you
a
ever
goal.
going to get 10?
Right, that's right. They'd be like, that's now a goal. But even just something that gives you a post that says there. And I know I've talked to Tony about the card, and I think Boggs designed the card. I'm not sure actually who designed the card. But in talking to Tony, and I'm not quoting him, I don't know exactly, but he basically just said, like, it's a fun card. People like trying to figure out how to draw more cards, so go for it.
Yeah.
And in a cooperative game, you don't really need to put as many limits on it like you would in a competitive game where the card would have to be removed from, tournament play. So they're not as worried about that. So,
yeah. All right. So let's transition to final score time. And Brandt, it's your first time here, so we give a final score on every card. 1 to 10, 5 is true neutral. That means right in the middle. 5 is not a failing score. 5 means you're right, split in the middle on it. So we will go through and each give it a quick explanation on our final score. LazyTitan, do you want to go first? I'll let Brandt have the final word because he's the guest.
I will say, as final scores, this card it's aggression, so it's already one of my favorites, and it cares about minions, which has been a favorite archetype of mine since it has existed. I think I would feel bad for my red playing brothers and sisters out there if I didn't give this at least an 8, and so I'm going to give it a 9 because this card's awesome. It's almost never bad. Sometimes I'll only run 2 copies of it just because having multiple in your hand can feel bad, but I've come around to playing 3 just because of how good it is. It's a powerhouse with no real downside unless you're playing one of those few villains. And if you know enough about the game to know that, you're probably good anyway. It's just a really solid card. It's very well themed of just like, bad guys are here, time to start thinking of something, make it happen. And I love playing every time I do. So I'll give it a 9.
9. Well, I said Brandt would go next. This is boring. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to call this card a 9. I think the theme is, this might be the most thematic card we've talked about. Top to bottom, from the title to the art to what it does to the flavor text to the resource icon, just across the board, it all hits. It all feels right. It's super fun. It's free to play, which always feels good. It can draw you a ton of cards. There's no upper limit on how many it can draw you, so it's a fun way to kind of play and explore your creativity in deck building. I think it's great. I think this is not, as I said, it's not a staple, but it does make an appearance in a lot of my aggression decks, and I think this is really great. So 9 out of 10 for me. Brandt?
Yeah, I think this is definitively a 9 out of 10. I agree. It's a 10 out of 10 fun factor, And I think that kind of idea that you have to like tech around it. So just the idea that, I guess a 10 out of 10 would be a card I'd put in every time, which is kind of weird because I assume you're never going to talk about a double resource card.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Maybe. Who knows?
It might not be the most exciting.
I
But I would say you're building a deck around this. If I pull this out of my binder, my box, my messy stack of cards all over my floor, whatever you have that you keep your cards in, you're starting to come up with an idea for this deck as opposed to you're pulling this as a final card to add to a deck. You're deciding you want to build this deck. You're listening to this episode wanting to do Vision or Wolverine or Storm or Thor, whatever we talked about, and going for that. So you're kind of starting with this card and building as opposed to, it's an everyman card or whatever. So that's where I think I would say it's a 9 out of 10. But yeah, the theme is fantastic, and anytime a card has a picture of Rocket Raccoon, it's automatically up there.
Oh yeah, this card's a playmaker. It's
Yeah.
making moves.
Yeah, I agree. So across the board, 9s. I mean, I think this is a very highly rated card. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to this episode about Bring It on Winning Hand, the podcast about Marvel Champions, one card at a time. Brandt, before we go, why don't you tell people where they can find you if they want to see more Brandt or hear more Brandt?
Sure, I have a channel called Step Into the Portal, and that is where you can find us playing. Usually we play a game or two a week. It's been a little light as of late with busyness, but you can find stuff on there. And then other times you'll see me playing the heroes as they come out, the new products and things, as well as other games. I play other games on the channel.
Well, thanks everyone for listening again. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you got this far, there's no reason not to leave a review and a written review. It does help the show a lot. Please take 30 seconds, leave 5 stars, write us a comment. That does help us get up the charts and get people listening to the podcast more. But for everybody here at Winning Hands, including me, Boom Guy, and LazyTitan, and our special guest, the Brandt, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
And one more thing, I'm going to need that guy's leg.